Well, children, hmm. Where there's so much racket, there must be something out of kilter. I think between the women of the North and the Negroes of the South, all thinking about rights, you white men gonna be in a fix pretty soon. Well, what's all this talking about? Hmm? This man over there, yes, you. He said women have to be helped into carriages, lifted over ditches, and to have the best place everywhere. Well, nobody ever helped me in no carriage, over no mud puddles, or gives me any best place in ain't our woman. Hmm? Look at me. Look at my arms. Hmm? I'm plowed and planted and gathered into barns, and no man could head me. Ain't our woman? Hmm? They talk about this thing in the head, but I'm not going there yet, because I want to tell you that I done birthed 13 children and saw them most all so hot to sleep. And when I cried out to the mother's grief, now would Jesus heard me, and ain't that a woman? Then they talks about this thing in the head. What's that they call it? They call it intellect. Intellect, that's it, sugar. What's that got to do with women's rights or Negroes' rights? If my cup don't hold but a pint and yours hold full, wouldn't you be mean not to let me have my little half a pint? Huh? Then, this man in the black, yes, you, yes, he said, women can't have as much rights as men because Christ was a woman. Well, where your Christ come from? Where your Christ come from? From God and a woman. Man didn't have nothing to do with it. Now, if the first woman God ever made was able to take this world and turn it upside down, all these women's hair together ought to be able to get it back and turn it right up again. And now, they's asking to do it. You men better let them. That's all I have to say. Much obliged for you listening to me. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. And thank you all for joining us. We are ecstatic to be before you today. Welcome to the R.E.A.L.L Academy. And I am completely ecstatic to be able to introduce the doctor, great Dr. Tammy Taylor, no longer loading. Everybody, please give her some emojis and some comments and congratulations. And you all have done that. I posted it earlier. Let me post my my congratulations applause here on the screen. But yes, we are so proud of her work, everything that she's done. Great, impactful work. I can't wait for her to talk about it this morning. And that is our topic. The congratulations, Tammy.
Thank
Dr. Taylor.
Thank you, Sheikah, and thank all of you guys for so much love. This is such an incredible space. You all are so supportive, and I am so thankful for your thoughts and encouragement, the support, and thank you for praying, because I could not have gotten through this except the Lord had brought me through it. So I thank you for praying. It has all paid off, and I'm very humbled to be before you this morning. So we are super excited, as she could say it, to talk this morning about the impact that Black women principals have on our schools, our students, and ultimately we can say student achievement. That wasn't the focus of my study, but we are going to continue that research so that we can provide some impact in academics as well. But again, thank you guys so much.
Yes, definitely. And thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Principal Kafele. And we hope that you all enjoyed the pre show. It was Cicely Tyson rendering the famous Sojourner Truth speech. And we felt like it was appropriate. You want to explain what her
Yes,
speech was
I
about
think, and
today?
I'm glad that she could. And when she was saying that we were going to use Sojourner Truth's speech, and nobody better to deliver it than Cicely
Sister
Tyson,
Tyson.
who is a legend in and of herself. But the reason that that's so appropriate for what we're going to be talking about this morning is because when you talk about the impact of Black women, you have to talk about Black women, and you have to talk about what they've brought to life, lived experiences throughout history. And I mean, that goes even back to antiquity. We have so many different things that we could share with you before that predates what you just heard from Cicely Tyson in honor of Sojourner Truth. But we're going to start kind of talking at that point, just because we don't have enough time to take you back to the Queens of Kemet. But that honestly, in the work, I do kind of highlight that because we could not get to that point had it not been for those warrior queens that served in antiquity. But the reason that Sojourner's speech was so important is because it really deals with prioritizing race, class, and gender, and that's what happens. That was the paradigm that I used to structure and frame my work was Africana womanism, and I selected Africana womanism for a very distinct reason, and we'll probably talk about that as well. But when you start looking at that prioritization, it's important that we are honest and that we feel like we recognize that when you are a Black woman, there's a tripartite that is impacting the way that you're received and your interactions with other people. First of all, you are Black. Second of all, for many of us, we come from a different class system than many of our counterparts. And then thirdly, we're women. So there's that trifecta that is that thing that we're up against that people don't often always realize. But my study went into detail because the reason that Sojourner's Truth speech is so important is because even back then, she was giving credit to that prioritization. If you go back and you listen to the speech, and I encourage you to, the one that we had was kind of blinking a little bit. So if you go back and listen to that in its entirety, you'll hear her deal initially at the beginning of the speech with race. And then you'll hear her talk about her class. And I mean, nobody putting coats down over mud puddles for me, but I'm still a woman. But at the end, you'll hear her talk about her gender. So from even back at that point, we were, as Black women, having to prioritize what came first. And first things are always going to be first. So when we start looking at what I studied from there, we have to start looking at that whole idea. And what comes to mind is when you start talking about women or issues of women that they face, people automatically classify you into the category of being a feminist. And I'm not here to interrogate feminism, because feminism does work for the people that it works for. But feminism actually has never been something that was created for Black women. And the space that we're in is easy for us to recognize that that isn't for us. Because if you look at how it all began, it began with the suffragists. And you had Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony, who were leading that women's right to vote movement. You had people who were going to help with the movement because they were Black women activists. You know, you had women who weren't welcome to that. Sojourner Truth, when she got up to make her speech at the convention, they jeered at her and they like catcalled and made fun of her because she was Black. So the bottom line, and all of that came to surface when the white women had that, because the white man is always their enemy if you're a feminist. That's the enemy. But they decided that they would side with white men rather than Black women in order to suppress the right to vote for Black men. That became very telling. And you had people like Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, who got up and stood up and said, look, this is not for us. This isn't, we're not going to support your cause because you all are not thinking about us at all. You want to use us to advance your cause, but this isn't for us as Black women. And that's another thing that came out of my study. Black women do not, they are not in the struggle against Black men, they're in the struggle with Black men. So we don't, there are some differences, and the reason that you have to really frame your thoughts around what you're doing when you're having conversations like that is it goes back to what your belief systems are. And like I said, there are people who subscribe to different schools of thought. And right now, I think we're in what they call like the fourth wave of feminism for people who connect with that ideal. But that first wave was that suffragist movement, when it became clear to most Black women that, you know, this doesn't include us. You say that we're a part of this conversation, but we really are not a part of the conversation.
And Tammy, that's one of the things that I love about your study and your research. And I did read the entire dissertation. It is phenomenal, and her work is impactful. And you rarely find, you know, a lot of dissertations go on the shelf to sit and not really. People are actually going to read them, and your professors even tell you, you know, don't try to make a big impact on anything. You ain't trying to change the world. Just finish your work, get your dissertation done. But I love that this work that she has done will make an impact. And looking at Black women's impact on school leadership, what she found was there's not a lot of research that has been done in this area. I love the fact that you bring Africana womanism to the forefront. And I think Dr. Hudson Weems, her paradigm for this is phenomenal, and something that we've even talked about is so easy to connect to, because as Black women, we are not against Black men. You know, we are in this together. We're in this Fantastic Four with who Principal Hurt encouraged us to even start our company. Principal Kafele, who is world renowned, logs on and talks about, you know, the work that we do and supports us. So what we do together in this work, we do, Black women and Black men together as educators. So I love how Africana womanism connects to really what our belief system is derived from. And just to give you all some background, Sojourner Truth, she was born into enslavement as Isabella Baumfree, and she actually chose the name Sojourner Truth. And she was actually the first Black woman to take a white man to court and win, because she sued a white slave owner to get her son back. So the fact that her speech is just so fitting for that time, but it is also still fitting.
And the thing is, it's so funny that you bring that up, because it was lots of things happening like that. And like when you hear people talk about, because Harriet Tubman is a pioneer of
Mm-hmm.
the enslavement of Black people getting to freedom. But what you hear when you are listening to feminists, they sometimes will identify and lump all of these women into that category. But when you really take a deep dive into that, you are able to see that she didn't, Harriet Tubman didn't go back to the South and just bring out women. She went to the South, she brought out men, women, and children. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what the Africana womanism paradigm centers around. It's a family centered ideology. So it's very, as Sheikah said, helpful for us to have such an ideology that helps to frame the way that we look, not just at research studies. I mean, this is exactly what this was for, but the way that we look at strengthening and fortifying our Africana communities.
And it also includes everything of the African diaspora, so Afro-Latin, Afro-European, Afro-American countries, their cultural ideologies, all of their Afrocentric perspectives are included. And this is pulled right from Tammy's study. So, Tammy, your study, what do you think as far as the impact of Black women leaders? What would you want people to know from your research so far? Because this will be something that will be able to be added to, people will be able to continue. And if you're working on your doctorate, I encourage you to even use this as a part of your study to add to. But what would you want people to know from your study about the impact of Black women in leadership?
So I think one of the more important things, and I'm so honored and thankful to have had Dr. Chika Akua as a member of my dissertation team. He's on my committee. And one of the things that he has suggested, and that's something that I'll be working on over these next few weeks, is to really go deeply into what was uncovered about how Black women feel they lead and what that connects with. And I think that the most impactful thing for me coming out of that was the realization that all of the theories that are currently out there about the leadership styles and what those styles look like, and it's styles that I've connected with before this study.
Mm-hmm.
Transformational leadership or transactional leadership, which is autocratic, or integrated leadership, instructional leadership, laissez-faire leadership, all those styles of leading, which are defined styles at this time, none of that showed up for me in the research. And so we're having to go deeper and to really name what it is that Black women identify themselves with in that seat. Like, I feel like I'm connected to what I do. So connectivity was one of the things that came out. Adaptability was another one of those things that came out. Inspirational was one of those things. Leading with integrity, being a good listener, being accountable. So all those things are the things that these women in the study said impacted them as leaders. So we're going to need to look at that to see, like, okay, so is it because we lead differently that we don't connect perfectly with these other ideologies, or is it something worth, like I said, defining myself?
Right. And I think the impact is something that needs to be better explored and more research surrounding. And I'm thankful too for Dr. Akua, because he was even the one who connected you to the paradigm of Africana womanism and Dr. Hudson Weems. And so when we talk about Africana womanism and us being in this fight together for social justice and for equality for ourselves, for our children in education spaces, what we're talking about, but just in general, we are connected to really great, powerful men and women who are doing this work and who are doing some very impactful things. So when Principal Hurt was on this morning and talked about the impact of being able to just have 60 people on and it reaching 31,500 people, I think is what he named. That was really encouraging and a blessing, because we really do want people's lives, and especially our children's lives, their trajectory to be changed. And
Sure.
I want to bring light to the fact that what you talked about at the beginning of your research, only 22% of public school principal positions are held by people of color. 77.8% of the other positions are white and non-Hispanic, and that in 1993, the growth of diversity in the area was mostly due to the Hispanic and Latinx principals and population. And we want that area to grow too, because every children's lives in all aspects needs to be representative. But it did say that Black principals growth basically had flatlined since that time. So again, this information and the information about the impact, I think, needs to be known, because people need to know how important it is when we're talking about schools that we're saying are underperforming, or that house a certain number of minorities, when you're not intentional about seeking out people who could actually make the difference and the impact. This could be a lot of the reasons why we are where we are in a lot of places.
Definitely. And one of the things that came out of the study was many times the reason why we are leaving the profession is because when we do get the role, we are the ones who get sent to the schools that are underperforming and they think are incapable of being turned around. You're kind of like there to manage
To be the fall guy.
what's happening there. Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of times they don't think it's ever going to happen. When it does happen, and we've experienced this, nothing is said in a lot of cases. Nothing is brought to it, but you wear the scarlet letter when it's not performing.
That's right.
So I want to bring up on the screen one last thing before we close, and we may not even be able. We probably won't have time to talk about it.
We'll do it. So we got to get with Dr. Principal Kafele. We got to get on.
We do. So we come on each week to connect to our R.E.A.L. framework. And this topic does connect to our framework because we really want Black women as leaders to be respected. There was something highlighted in your study where one of the Black ladies that was a principal had earned her doctorate, and the assistant principal, who was non-white, refused to call her doctor. We want Black women to be respected in leadership. We want you to walk in your excellence. We want you to find an accountability partner who can be your trust mate, who will help you along this journey. We want you to lift up literacy and numeracy in students, and we definitely want you to lead in excellence. So we will continue
and feel like you can do it authentically, because that's another thing that came out of this. Be you.
Be you authentically and unapologetically. So we want to leave you with that. Please tune in next to Principal Kafele. Tune in Sunday with Principal Josh Tovar, and we will continue this information next week, because the impact is great. Great information. Great job, Tammy. I applaud you. I'm so proud of you.
Appreciate you. And thank you, everybody, for all the love.
And thank you, everyone, for joining us. We will see you next Saturday at 10:30.
Have a good week.